So this is actually some follow-up on a story David talked about last week, because there's been a disturbing development here. David talked about the slashing of the federal workforce at the Centers for Disease Control and how now being under the control of RFK Jr., that's resulting in failures to communicate to the public about the spreading of diseases. That itself is scary. And in recent NPR reporting on this, a CDC worker was quoted as saying, quote, "We are functionally unable to operate communications. We feel like our hands are tied behind our backs." Now we're getting a very specific example from a consequence of this from new reporting in the Washington Post about an E. coli outbreak that made more than 80 people sick across 15 states and even killed one person. An outbreak that the public was not notified about after the source of the outbreak was identified. The Trump administration made a direct decision not to publicize the names of the grower and the processor of the tainted lettuce that made everyone sick and killed a person. This is the consequence of the right's attacks on regulation, with their obsession with slashing workforces, with cutting costs. We have workers in place. We have regulations. We pay for these things so that people don't get sick, so that people don't die, so that we can make sure the food supply is safe. This report begins with the story of a 9-year-old boy, Colton George. Quote, "Days later, he lay in a hospital bed fighting for his life. He had eaten tainted salad, according to a lawsuit against the lettuce grower filed by his parents on April 17th in federal court for the Southern District of Indiana. The E. coli bacteria that ravaged Colton's kidneys was a genetic match to the strain that killed one person and sickened nearly 90 people in 15 states last fall. Federal health agencies investigated the cases and linked them to a farm that grew romaine lettuce. But most people have never heard about this outbreak, which a February 11th internal Food and Drug Administration memo linked to a single lettuce processor and ranch as the source of the contamination. In what many experts said was a break with common practice, officials never issued a public communications after the investigation or identified the grower who produced the lettuce. And as noted in this reporting, the outbreak began last fall, and the Biden administration began the investigation. That investigation was completed on February 11th, but as NPR notes here, quote, "At that time, the decision was made by the Trump administration not to release the names of the grower and the processor because the FDA said no product remained on the market. The administration has also withdrawn a proposed regulation to reduce the presence of salmonella in raw poultry, according to an April USDA alert. It was projected to save more than $13 million annually by preventing more than 3,000 illnesses, according to the proposal." So you might think, well, the product wasn't on the market. Who cares? No, we should care. The grower and processor should be publicly identified for several reasons. I mean, what if these people have done this before? What if they're repeat offenders? Transparency allows for accountability, so those responsible can be forced to ensure that they are engaging with proper sanitation practices. People can take legal action if they need to, if they know who to sue. And this is one of the fears, that the Trump administration's actions make it more difficult for the people to have the power here. Quote, "Public health advocates warn companies and growers will face less regulatory oversight and fewer consequences for selling tainted food products as a result of recent FDA actions. This is what happens when political attacks on our public health infrastructure are successful. Given that everything is political, health policy is political, we cannot separate the CDC and politics. We should at least be able to agree, regardless of where you stand politically, that robust funding for our public health infrastructure is crucial to ensure food safety and the health and well-being of all Americans. This is certainly one major area where Trump has set us back significantly.
After researching, writing, refining, The Echo Machine, my book, is finally out. This is not just a book about how American politics got so broken. It's also about what's happening right now and what we can still do to stop things from getting worse. Trump's been back in power. The results have been even more catastrophic than many feared, with targeting of political opponents and gutting democratic institutions, laying the groundwork to even further consolidate power. But the thing is that none of this is inevitable. The same forces that brought us here can be countered if we understand how they work and what to do about them. And that's what the Echo Machine is all about. Some say that without corporate media backing, books like this can't succeed. I think we can prove them wrong. You can get the Echo Machine right now at davidpakman.com/echo on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Audible, Kindle, or by calling any local bookstore and asking them to order it. This book is more important than ever. If you care about what happens next, and I do, check out The Echo Machine today at davidpakman.com/echo.